Sandbox would like to acknowledge that this performance takes place on the traditional territories of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapahoe nations. Now please enjoy a play by Lammers.
Play by Joan Lammers.
In the main play,
Dawn, a theater sound designer.
Pam, a friend of Dawn's. In the flashback,
Chris, Dawn's assistant for the show.
Jerry, scenic and lighting designer for the show.
Jane, production design and projections, and various stagehands. In the flashback movies,
Alana, Dawn's girlfriend at the time of the flashback.
Alana's father, mother, and 3 brothers, various farmhands and stagehands, and I'll be reading the stage directions. The scene, the balcony of a fairly large theater near the balcony rail. The balcony rail is staged right, with the entrance to the balcony just off stage left. Next to the balcony rail, and sitting with one side on it, is a large sheet of plywood with a tangle of tape recorders, mixers, and amplifiers. The equipment looks as though it was put there with the idea that it only had to last for one show for which it was set up. Various records and tapes are scattered over the seats around the table, and there are several piles of discarded tape from editing sessions that never got to the wastebasket. The house and stage of the theater that we are in are off-stage right, and never seen by the audience. Throughout this act, appropriate sounds should be heard from these areas as though there are people and activity in them. In front of this entire picture is a blue screen, on which projections are made at various times. It remains there for the entire act. Projections can be rear projected if necessary for a thrust stage. The time is 1974. The most of the action takes place within the flashback, which takes place in May of 1970. On the screen, we see a segment of the movie to be shown later. A red VW winds to the mountain roads of West Virginia in the early morning. Lights come up on Don, who is sitting in a seat stage left, seemingly by himself, since we see him through the scrim. The sound equipment is not seen at this time. The movie continues as the lights come up on him. First a high backlight, and then the front light. The front lights come up. As the front lights come up, we see that Don is not alone. A light then comes up on Pam, who is standing about 4 feet from Don in the aisle. Pam speaks as though the lights have come up, catching the two in the middle of a conversation, or rather, in the middle of an attempted conversation on the part of Pam, as Dawn does not seem to be listening. She is rather irritated.
What's gotten into you lately anyway? You asked me to come over to talk with you, and not only have you not talked, but you haven't even had the courtesy to pay attention to me.
Dawn still does not move. He is absorbed in a dream and does not seem to see anything around himself.
Dawn!
He comes to at the start. The movie stops abruptly.
Oh, sorry. Did I drift off again?
What were you trying to say?
Well, since you didn't seem to want to talk, I thought I'd give it a try. Only you weren't listening.
Sorry. And?
Well, I've been watching you lately.
I'm very flattered.
And I think I figured out your problem.
Which one?
Your lack of attention. Dawn, you've been living in the past.
What?
You're living in a dream world of the past. Look, I'm here to talk to you. I know some of the story already. I've met Alana, and I've known you for quite some time. I'm not a total stranger to your dream.
So you want me to talk about it, huh?
Look, you've retreated into that dream so far that you don't even notice the people around you half the time. You are running away from anything that might get you too involved with anyone, especially a woman.
Oh, give me a break. I work around here all the time with women.
That's just the point. You work with them every day, but you never let any of them get any closer to you than just being another fellow worker. You're afraid it would break up your nice little dream world. Even if you don't want to talk about it to me, at least think it through once for yourself. It's about time you straightened out your dream from reality and realized it is past. So you can start acting in the present as though there were other people around.
The lights have started fading in the last line of this speech. They continue to fade during Dawn's line and cut him off.
You may be sorry that you suggested that, but since you aren't here to listen.
The lights fade out. During the blackout, Dawn is given a mug of coffee. The lighting throughout the flashback is much steeper, causing deep shadows on people's faces and bodies. As the lights come up on the entire stage, they reveal the sound equipment that has thus far been hidden by the scrim. Dawn is bent over the tape recorders, working his magic. Jerry enters from stage left.
Why don't you take a break? You've been working without a break now for 3 days trying to get that tape finished. You're gonna get sick.
Don't worry, Jerry. I've been getting plenty of sleep. Besides, the show means a lot to me.
2 or 3 hours of sleep each night is plenty. And don't give me that crap about this being such an important show. You know as well as I do that this show's a turkey.
Don turns to Jerry. Suddenly, his tape is the last thing on his mind. His attention is riveted on Jerry and on the theory he's been working on lately.
Do you remember that night at the bar when you asked me to do sound for this show?
Yeah? What about it?
Do you remember exactly what it was that you asked me?
Well, I asked you if you would design sound for the show.
That's it, Jerry. You asked me to design sound for the show. I mean, do you realize what kind of a jump it is from the idea of the technician simply running off a sound tape to the idea of the artist shaping the sound of the show?
So? The audience won't know the difference anyway.
Not consciously, but it does affect them. Do you know that new term, scenography, that people are starting to kick around lately?
It's just a fancy word for scene designer.
No, Jerry. Scenography as a concept involves the idea that everything that happens in the theater in some way affects the audience's senses. The idea is audience reaction oriented. Rather than asking what you want the audience to see, you ask first what effect you want the total to have on them, and then you have to ask what you have to make them see and hear to get them to feel that way.
But that's just what we're doing to that show.
I know. That's why this show is so important to me. I mean, even if the show is bad, it'll have good sound. And for once, I've thought about it from the angle of what effect I wanted to have on the audience, and not just as support for the cast.
Jerry shrugs and turns to go. She does not quite understand what it is that Dawn is getting at, but senses that she should be impressed by it.
Hang on, Jerry. I'll be done in a half hour or so. Just save me a seat.
He starts to turn back to his work.
Oh, and Jerry, ask Chris if he'll come up and help me finish up a bit of wiring here, will you?
Jerry leaves. Dawn makes one final splice on the tape he's working on, rewinds it, and listens to it through his headphones. Rewinds it again, and listens again. An expression of triumph comes over his face.
There it is.
He looks around and realizes Chris is not there yet.
Hey, Chris, are you coming?
Patience, sir, and I will arrive shortly.
Don turns back to his tape, listens to it closely again, and then goes on to the next section. The lights fade out slowly on him. The lights fade out. Lights come up, revealing Don sitting in the aisle. Chris enters, measures down his foot to wake him up.
Wake up, lazy! I got the wiring done while you were asleep. You want to check it before you turn anything on?
No, I trust your work. Let's just try it out.
As she is saying his last line, Don turns on the sound system. This involves about 10 switches and dials that must be turned on or adjusted. Then he turns on the tape recorder nearest himself. There is a whine, then a loud explosion, as though World War II bomb dropping. More follow, and then sounds of debris falling. He's gradually moved from the balcony to the stage, at which point we hear the sounds of an entire ammunition dump blowing up. Chris starts, then begins to laugh as the sound continues, while the sound is still going on.
Hey, that's great! What the hell is it for?
It's just some stuff I've been doing for Tom over at XU.
The sounds end.
Hey, has Jerry gotten here yet? There's something I want her to hear.
Oh, she just got here. I think she's on the stage somewhere. Just turn it on. She'll hear it.
Don turns another tape recorder. A high whine comes over the speakers on stage. It is not a pure tone, but rather a chord, and it gives the effect of someone dragging their fingernails over a blackboard.
That's it. That's for the trial scene. Think it'll do the job?
Hey, shut that thing off before you drive me nuts.
There's your answer.
Don complies with Jerry's command and then turns to Chris.
I hope Gary likes it.
What difference does it make?
Well, he is supposed to be the director of this show, although at times I wonder.
About what? Him being the director or the show being terrible? Oh, quit worrying. We all know that the show's lousy. Why should we worry about what he thinks of the sound? He can't even handle the actors properly. Why should we expect him to be able to handle everything else?
Blackout. The lights reveal Chris at the sound table. There is a sound of crickets coming over the sound system all over the auditorium.
Okay, Chris, I think that does it. Let me hear how the music sounds.
Chris switches on another tape recorder, moves some controls. The crickets crossfade to some harpsichord music, very fast-paced and intricate. Chris adjusts a few knobs to try to get the right balance of sound in the auditorium.
How's that?
Great. I think we got the speakers balanced for now. Let's start cleaning up and we'll break for supper.
Chris starts cleaning the area up. The music is still playing. Dawn enters and starts helping Chris clean up.
Hey Dawn, shut that thing off for a second.
Chris, who is next to the sound panel, switches off the tape.
Better clean it up and clear out of here by 6 tonight. You need to get out of here.
Why?
They're closing the school. We have until 6 to clear out of here.
Wait, why?
They're afraid of another riot. With all this Kent State stuff, the demonstrations, and the moratorium, the big shots are running scared. They don't want any damage to their precious buildings, so they're going to close the school, dorms and all.
There is a long pause. It takes a while for the full force of what this all means to register in Dawn's mind. Then he slumps down on his seat. We see him as though he is fighting an enormous battle in his mind, but cannot tell exactly what this battle is. He's almost in tears.
What about the show?
We're only shut for 10 days. We'll let us back to work after the first 3 of those if we have security clearance. So they've only decided to postpone the show for a week. Dawn is visibly relieved. This show has meant a lot to him before in the experimental sense. Chris starts to shut down the sound system. Suddenly, Dawn jumps up and heads for the exit.
Where are you going?
Oh, shoot, I need to call Alana. I need to see what she's doing about getting home. I'll be back in a minute to help close up shop.
Exits.
Music is heard. It is the beginning of Rachmaninoff's second concerto. The movie fades up as the lights fade out. For a while, we see Chris and Jane behind the script dimly as they shut down the sound system and carry some of the equipment out of the place. They exit when they are done, and the lights behind the screen fade out. The movie is a collage depicting the events of the following week, almost as though they are part of a dream rather than part of the reality that is the theater and the show in which Chris and Dawn are working. We see Dawn dialing the phone, then talking. Then we see him helping load Alana's luggage into his little red VW, and the two of them winding through the mountains of roads of West Virginia, then arriving at her home, met by her parents. We see the two of them at a concert, walking around the small town where she lives, climbing a nearby mountain together. On the mountain, they run across a small stream, with sheep grazing nearby, up late at night talking. Then Dawn gets in the car again, kisses Alana goodbye, and we see his car again winding through the mountains, this time with only Dawn in it. Throughout this entire sequence, the music continues, and appropriate environmental sounds, but there is no spoken dialogue that is heard by the audience. During the last of this, the lights come up slowly in an empty balcony. Just as Dawn is getting to the car to return on the screen, Chris and Dawn enter the balcony.
You had better let Jerry know that you are here. She's been worrying about you and... We're gonna be back.
Chris has begun to check the wiring to make sure that no one has messed it up. Dawn opens a couple of boxes of tape, placing them on the recorders, getting ready for a rehearsal.
I told her that I'd be gone for a week, and a week it was. I couldn't tell her where I was going to be when I left, because I wasn't even sure where I was going to be after the first night.
The movie fades out.
Where have you been?
West Virginia?
What's in West Virginia?
Who, not what. I took Alana home. I thought I would head on to New York from there, but I ended up just staying with her family.
Well, you sure look a lot better than when you left us, so I guess nobody is going to complain about your absence.
I'm all caught up here anyway, so the trip won't put me behind at all. You know, Chris, it was great up there in the mountains. It was just like back home. You know, I never really realized how much I missed the mountains in the backyard. I mean, we got to just...
I thought you'd never get back.
I said I'd be gone a week.
Yeah, but you could have at least let us know where you were so we could have gotten a hold of you if you had to.
That's exactly what I didn't want to happen. Anyway, I was caught up when I left. The show's been set back a week, so I'm still caught up. How's everyone else doing? How are the lights coming?
Great. That Jeff's really doing a good job. He's managed to get most of the mess up behind the ceiling straightened out.
Good. Well, I guess I better show you how these cues are going to work. It's not going to be easy.
Jerry turns to leave, and Dawn begins showing Chris what he's going to have to do to manage his cues. The lights fade out. As the lights come up, Dawn is making final adjustments on a tape for the show. There is a cricket sound throughout the auditorium from one of the tape recorders. Dawn is very happy, and it shows Alana's coming back to town today. The balcony is considerably more crowded than before, as the projection equipment for the show has been moved up. There are several technicians Technicians huddled around one of the projectors, trying to get it to work. As the lighting reaches full, the crickets slow down and stop, as though someone has pulled the power from the tape recorder.
All right, who's tripping over the power cables?
Sorry. She moves to replug the cord she's just kicked out of the socket. The crickets come to life again. She returns to the projector where she inserts a slide and turns the machine on. Then she yells down at Jerry, who is on the stage, "Hey Jerry, how's this?"
Hey, you nuts up there gonna be ready for dress rehearsal tonight?
There's a chorus of course, yeah, what do you expect?" from the crew in the balcony. Everyone goes back to work again. Someone comes running into the theater yelling, "Hey Jerry, Jerry!" and runs up to the stage. A murmur is heard from there, as though the rest of the crew have huddled around the newcomer and are listening to something he has to say. In a little while, everyone in the balcony has crowded around the balcony rail to try to see what it is that is going on. Finally, someone decides to ask,
What's going on down there?
"They've decided to shut down school for the rest of the year. We have to clear out of here by 7 tonight.
What?
Blackout."
The backlight comes up on Dawn, silhouetting him from behind the scrim. We see the red VW winding through the mountains, the two at the concert, Dawn leaving Alana's home. The rest of the lights come up, and the movie fades out. Dawn is alone in the balcony, about to burst into tears again. He sees not only the collapse of the show, but the fact that it looks as though we won't see Alana again this year, unless he makes another trip. After a slight pause, Chris enters and crosses to Dawn.
Hey, don't worry about this show. There will be others, and you've learned as much as you can from this one already.
But I wanted to see if all this stuff would have the effect on the audience that I wanted it to, and I can't do that without at least one performance.
Stop it. There's nothing that the best sound could do to save this show. Anyway, they're trying to get the university to let us put it on, even though the school is shut down. We'll probably be able to put the show on anyway.
Blackout. As the lights come up on the scene, a show is in progress on the stage. We can hear the audience in the house and the actors on the stage. The scene is the very end of the trial scene in A Man for All Seasons. Chris is at the controls of the sound system, with Dawn leaning on the balcony rail nearby. Both of the projectors now have an operator standing by to change the slides when necessary. Under the dialogue from the stage, there is a faint hint of the whine mentioned earlier, barely audible. Over this, we hear the sounds of a courtroom crowd, and also the faint sound of rain, as though on the other side of the wall. Occasionally, Chris reaches up to turn on a tape recorder, and we hear a thunderclap. Chris is talking over the headset to try timing these thunderclaps properly with the lightning that flashes on the stage just beforehand. As the trial scene draws to a close, the rain gradually fades into the distance, and the thunder becomes more and more distant. There is a thunderclap just as the sentence is pronounced, and that is the last one that we hear. During the ensuing blackout on the stage, the courtroom sounds fade into the murmur of an angry crowd at the execution. The whine, which has been on all this time, begins to build as the execution progresses. As Thomas Moore places his head on the block, a drum roll is started, building along with all of the other sounds as the axe is raised. As the axe comes down, there is a total blackout on the stage. Sound, lights, and projections all go out at once. The audience is totally silent. Then, with the line, "Behold the head of a traitor," we hear a slight murmur from them. Dawn turns to Chris.
It worked! Chris, it worked just the way I planned it!
They give each other a high five. Chris turns around and starts up a tape recorder. It is the ending music to the show, the 18th variation from Rachmaninoff's Rhapsody on a theme from Paganini. The audience begins to applaud as the lights fade out on the balcony. We see the crew start to shut down after the show, getting ready to go home, silhouetted through the screen, onto which the movie now fades up. The audience finishes the applause and we hear them start to leave. When the 18th variation is over, the music fades in the segment of the second concerto where the first movie left off. This movie shows Dawn Summer working in a farm picking muskmelons, directing traffic for the youth picking strawberry season, driving one of the tractors to pull a semi-trailer out of the mud, and speeding through the fields in this red VW. The movie fades to a scene on the freeway. Dawn is in his car, approaching the college. Pan to a picture of the approaching skyline at dusk. We see Alana and Dawn in an outdoor theater, at a movie, talking in the lobby of her dorm. We see Dawn working in the theater, trying to straighten up some wiring behind the ceiling, and Alana at her ballet recital. The movie fades out.
Lights come up first on Dawn, and then on Pam, seated where they were in the first scene. There is a long pause. Finally, Pam breaks the silence.
You still can't quite separate the two parts of that dream, can you? Alana didn't have anything to do with your theatrical discoveries. She and the show were two different events. Don't mix them up. As it is, you can't relate to any woman who might threaten one dream because you're afraid it might kill the other one too. You don't want that.
Maybe you're right.
There's another movie. This is a mad rush of scenes from the last movie and Uvulana poised in midair for ballet recital. This fades to a scene with Jerry and Dawn in a bar, the scene that started the Man for All Seasons experience for Dawn. Dawn begins to talk as this last line fades out. During this entire sequence, Pam and Dawn are visible behind the scrim.
But maybe now that you've pointed out the problem, I can face it and try to sort the whole thing out in my mind. Anyway, I don't know. Thanks for listening. I mean, it takes a load off my mind.
There's a long pause. Dawn is deep in thought. Pam gets up quietly and starts to leave, and Dawn looks around and stands up.
Listen.
Pam turns back towards Dawn, who is now sitting in the aisle as though asking, what?
I was thinking of going to see that movie down at the Albee. You want to go with me?
Blackout. End of Act 1, end of reading.
Today, we really appreciate it. We are part of the incredible CU program known as Sandbox, where students get to propose shows and act in them, direct in them, produce them, do costume for them, do sets for them. It's all student-led. It's an incredible, fun experience for everybody, and it allows voices from all across campus to shine and express. And it's just an incredible opportunity for so many students. In fact, I think some of the students in this show, this is their first Sandbox show. So we want to thank you guys for coming, but of course, we're just starving college students. We don't really have a lot of money to our names. So there's a purple bucket just outside the door. If you guys want to donate anything, any amount is amazing. No amount is too small. It could be $5, it could be $10. I mean, if you like the program enough, donating $1,000 wouldn't be such a bad idea. And so, you know, we want to be able to continue making incredible shows like this that, you know, really speak to the creativity of all the students on campus and allow for shows that normally wouldn't get produced. This show in particular is 50 years in the making. My dad wrote it 50 years ago, around the time of his own college career, and so to be able to perform it now is really amazing, and so to be able to give more students opportunities to do the shows that they want to do is just incredible. So whatever you feel you want to donate out there. There's a QR code out there as well in case you don't have any cash on you and you still want to donate. You can scan it and donate as much as you want. So thank you guys again so much for coming, and we hope to see you at the next Sandbox show.